Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Wednesday, July 24, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Support for Vice President Kamala Harris continues to surge. What does it look like in the battleground states? We'll talk with the Speaker of the House in Pennsylvania about that very issue. Vice President Harris gives a keynote address to the women of Zeta Phi Beta sorority incorporated in Indianapolis. We'll share some of what she said. And did a Fox News morning host say she was going to speak to a colored sorority? We'll show you the video. Yeah. Plus, tonight we'll pay tribute to Houston Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who passed away on Friday after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
The endorsements continue to roll in for Vice President Kamala Harris as the March for Our Lives, the youth-led organization dedicated to ending gun violence following the 2018 Parkland High School shooting. This is the first time the organization has ever endorsed a political candidate, which may be an indicator of the mounting youth support for Vice President. Harris' support in battleground states like Pennsylvania are critical, as well as Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. We'll talk about that is the Speaker of the House in Pennsylvania, Joanna McClinton. Glad to have you here, Speaker McClinton.
Thank you. Good to see you tonight, Roland.
So what do you make of the last 72 hours? It was, of course, Sunday, President Joe Biden made his announcement. He was not running for seeking re-election. He endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris, and she and her campaign has been on a flat-out roll ever since.
It has been unbelievable. The feeling where I live here in West Philly, I'm right in here in my office right now, to hearing from people who are at the bottom of the ticket, who are knocking doors every day. The responses are overwhelmingly positive. Not only are we proudly with her, we give a salute of service to our President Biden, who came in at a dark time when we were all scared, when we had our masks, when we couldn't gather, when we had to do everything on Zoom and everything remotely because we couldn't be together. And we recognize that under the steady hand of President Biden, not only did he take us out of that dark time in the pandemic, but brought us into better times where we have the lowest unemployment rate that we've ever had, where, as he promised, he canceled millions of borrowers worth of student debt. And Vice President Harris has been by his side in all of these great moves helping people. So we are excited. We are fired up. We are thrilled. And it's something that really was not expected. People didn't start the year saying that. I still got a sign in my house that says Biden Harris. I got to get a new one.
Well, when you start looking at polling data, for instance, the Ipsos Reuters poll show a change in terms of in the race. Their particular poll shows Vice President Kamala Harris up 2 against Donald Trump. Previously, Trump led President Biden by 2. You also see some changes also in the polls, if you will, when you look at there's a Newsweek poll. First of all, Newsweek reports a particular poll showing that supporters of Donald Trump are flipping over to Vice President Kamala Harris. That is the CNN poll. What do you think is happening here with this just surging enthusiasm for the vice president?
Well, I have to borrow a word from our 44th president. What's happening here is hope. People are feeling very devastated because we know that as tremendous as President Biden is today and his legacy will be tomorrow, that he was not his normal self, that he has not been up to the fight that it's going to take to defeat, once again, Donald J. Trump. But Kamala Harris is poised, is prepared, has a record of outstanding service as Attorney General, as the United States Senator, as the District Attorney in San Francisco, has been giving her entire career to public service. She's ready for this moment. And not only is she ready for the moment, she's going to get Republican and independent voters who have for a long time been outspoken about not wanting to give 45 another vote, but also not feeling confident that our president currently was ready to rumble. She is, in fact, ready to rumble and has already started.
Saw some polling there in Pennsylvania showing Donald Trump was ahead of President Biden by anywhere from 6 to 7 points. What is it going to take for the VP to close that gap and win Pennsylvania, which Biden won in 2020?
Well, what it will take is boots on the ground. It's going to take all of us letting people know how tremendous her career has been and will be, letting people know where she has stood on issues, articulating her vision at the doors, a strong get out the vote program. Because not only do we have a Democratic stronghold right where I live in Philly, we've got to make sure that the folks who aren't normally voting, who haven't tuned in to Tuesday, November the 5th, who aren't steeped in the waters like we are, politicals, waiting and counting down backwards to the election, that they are prepared, that they have a plan, that they're excited and ready to vote. And then when we get to the collar counties, where all of the women have been excited to vote for choice and reproductive freedom, which is how we were able to flip the House in 2022, understanding that her record is undeniable in standing up for women's rights. And then once we get out of the suburbs around the cities, we're going to go into rural communities to talk about what her big wins have been, both policy wins, where she stands, and how she will fight for them.
You talk about that support. What was critical for President Biden in 2020 was really running up big numbers in those suburban counties in Pennsylvania.
That's right. In the suburbs, when you think about, okay, we've got Philly, we've got Pittsburgh, we have Harrisburg, we've got smaller cities, Allentown, Erie. But in the suburbs surrounding Philadelphia and Pittsburgh is not only where President Biden was able to win strong, but also where we have gained territory at the state legislature. And mind you, this is 2024. Every state representative in every area that's represented by Republicans has a candidate in the suburbs, on the ground, knocking doors, mobilizing people. So not only do we see a new momentum with our soon-to-be Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris, but we also see folks at the bottom of the ticket who are doing the work every single day to get the vote out, let folks know that Republicans can't be trusted from Washington to Harrisburg, and that most importantly, we have some champions that are willing to fight for us and stand with people on our values and what our governor here calls real freedoms.
Speaking of that, your governor, Josh Shapiro, is on the short list for potential VP candidates for Vice President Harris. Your thoughts?
It's very exciting to see a governor who's in his hopefully first term, unless he goes to Washington, D.C., 2 years into the term, to be considered, to be on the short list. What does it take for people all around the country to start saying, hey, consider these few people to be a running mate to go all across the country over the next 100-something days? It's awesome. I've worked with Governor Josh Shapiro for my entire career in the legislature. When I got started, he ran for Attorney General my second year. When I was running for my first reelection, I was proud to support him in a crowded primary primary with another DA from out of the other side of the state. He then went in 2020 to win across the state. And in 2022, he defeated an incumbent senator who was anointed by Trump to be the Republican nominee. So he's already been beating extremism in every part of Pennsylvania. You talked about those suburbs, talked about the Democratic strongholds, and even in rural Pennsylvania. So I do know that he could be a key player in helping our vice president secure Pennsylvania's 19 electoral college votes.
Absolutely. One of the things folks talked about when then Senator Obama chose Senator Joe Biden to be his VP choice in 2008 was the fact that he could talk to those white voters in places, in the other places of Pennsylvania. People always talk about outside of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is Alabama. He talked about being, a Joe from Scranton. But Vice President Kamala Harris is a different dynamic. And so it is going to be critical for the Democrats to maintain that white voter coalition that President Biden had. He got 42% of those voters, white seniors, white college, white suburban. And can you just speak to that?
Absolutely, because when we think about Governor Shapiro, not only has he been able to earn votes from that same demographic, but he's the only governor in our nation that's been effectively managing a divided legislature. All the other governors either have total Republicans or total Democrats. We have a 1-seat majority in the state house as Democrats, and there is a Republican supermajority currently in the state Senate. But notwithstanding that, he's been able to produce, he's been able to get results, and most importantly, he's been able to work those voters in every part. He's a wildly popular governor. His approval rating is about 70% amongst everybody in the state. That includes the Republicans.
All right. Sounds very good there. Well, look, we're certainly going to see what happens. It has been one heck of a 3-day rollout for the VP. Speaker McClinton, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, then. I'm going to go to a break. We'll be right back with our panel right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I still have my NFL contract in my house, having a case. It's 4 of them for my 4-year contract. I got a $600,000 signing bonus. My base salary for that first year was $150,000. Matter of fact,
$150,000.
$150,000. That's what I made, $150,000. Now think about it. My signing bonus was a forgivable loan, supposedly. When I got traded to the Colts, they made me pay back my signing bonus to them. I had to give them their $600,000 back.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so pissed. Because, I try to be a man of my word. I'm like, you, I'll give you your money back. Even though I know I earned that money,
right.
I gave them that money back. I gave them $600,000 back. But yet, I was this malcontent. I was a bad guy. I'm about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing right. Because I looked at, because you look at contract. Look at John Elway. John Elway was making $1 million, $800,000. I was making $150,000. I was doing everything. And I'm like, but yet I was, I got so many letters, so I just play for free and all that kind of stuff. You don't forget that kind of stuff.
Right.
That stuff is hurtful.
Essence Atkins.
Mr. Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon.
It's me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching.
You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, joining me in my panel, Rebecca Carruthers, Vice President, Fair Election Center out of D.C., A. Scott Bolden, News Nation political contributor, chair, NBA PAC, and former D.C. Democratic Party chair out of D.C. as well. Glad to have both of you here. Rebecca, I'll start with you. Just as I said earlier, it's been one heck of a rollout for VP Harris's campaign. It has been very smooth. Look at the huge amount of money raised from small donors, 62%, first time they've ever given to a campaign. The major Democratic donors contributing more than $150 million, or promising that. The thousands of volunteers signing up, 2,000 people wanting to work for the campaign. That's a lot of good momentum.
You know, it's been a long 72 hours. It feels like it has been 3 months instead of 3 days. We have seen a smooth rollout. And I would say anytime that you are 104 days out from the election, and we're actually about 59 days out from when early voting starts in Virginia for military and overseas folks, if you're going to switch the top of the ticket, this is the way to do it. It needs to be coordinated. It needs to be smooth. It needs to be unified.
Absolutely. And Scott, what also I like is that she's come out guns blazing. She has set the tone, and I think the tone is critically important, how she has been going after Donald Trump.
It has been a dichotomy that has been magnified by the difference of Biden prosecuting the case against Trump versus the prosecutor prosecuting the case against Trump. I mean, it's just been like night and day, and you're right. They come out hard, and the damn Republicans don't know what to do. They're running and scrambling, trying to figure out a strategy against this qualified, competent, and very capable woman who happens to be Black and Asian. And so you can see it when I'm on other panels. You can see them struggling to say, well, she was anointed the nominee in the dark. No, she wasn't. She earned it. She earned it in 72 hours, less than 72 hours, when all the delegates voted. The energy behind the Democratic Party and their strategy has changed to the point where they're not just trying to compete in swing states, right? They're trying to rebuild that blue wall and go beyond. It'll be interesting to see who she picks as her vice president in the next, say, 48 hours, because she's gonna, I think it ought to be a governor or a senator from a swing state that can really seal the deal. Because I see her growing and continuing to grow with this momentum of young people. Black and brown people are back in there. The abortion issue, suburban white women. I mean, I watched her hug some small kids in Wisconsin, the mayor's kids, and she knelt down and talked to these young ladies, and I can only imagine what she was saying. But what was more important is young ladies seeing the vice president of the United States that looked like them, a lighter version, but looked like them as a African-American or as a Black woman. I mean, the power of that, whether those kids were Black, white, yellow, or brown, for women in this country is just not only amazing, but just incredibly powerful. I'm so proud to know her and have known her since her days at Howard. And, you know, we just got to gather around her. And your leadership on the Black Men Call, I know there's another one next week. I'm certainly going to jump on. And what you raised was just incredible. And you and I talked about that 2 or 3 years ago. But this was a real impetus to do that. And the brother showed up to not only protect, but to support her. So bravo so far.
And not only that, Rebecca, I love how Doug fires back. I love how everyone else. And I think what has happened is her, again, I go back to tone. Her aggressive tone has caused other folks in this campaign to get a little more firmer in their backs in terms of being able to fight, because that's what's most important. And then when you look at, again, when you go from Black women on Sunday, Black men on Monday, Latina women on Tuesday, South Asian women on Wednesday, white women tomorrow, you see these, in fact, I saw some posts where Black gay men are having their own call.
God bless them. All right.
Absolutely. What you're seeing is unity among the various coalitions and demographics that a President Harris needs in order to win the White House. And once again, there was a lot of consternation over the last 5-6 weeks of, hey, the ticket needs to stay the same. There needs to be stability. But what we're seeing is an injection of excitement back into this race because we weren't seeing this excitement a month ago. We were seeing numbers with Black folks, African Americans decreasing in terms of excitement. We saw that young people weren't as interested in what was going to happen in November. So now it's like this campaign has been turbocharged. And so now we're going to have to see with whether or not the Republicans are able to respond to all of this energy that's coming from the Democratic side, and if Republicans can respond without using racial epithets or without using racial dog whistles. So it's going to be an interesting 104 days.
I love how these Republicans have no idea what the hell to respond, Scott. So Jason Riley is a black conservative columnist for the Wall Street Journal. Look at this. This is a column that he wrote on July 9th. Kamala Harris would be the best Democratic choice. This is what he wrote July 23rd. Kamala Harris isn't the change Democrats need. Dude, it's 2 weeks apart. Talk about sound like an idiot.
Well, as conservatives, it's just like when I say white people want to define racism. Conservatives want to define the Democrats, and both are the least qualified to do so. They have no qualification, but they want to comment on it, and they're going to struggle with it. Because, Roland, this case ought not be close. I don't think America is ready for another MAGA president, someone who's been found liable for financial fraud, sexual abuse, and been convicted of 34 felonies. I just don't think majority of Americans are ready for that. You and I know the majority of Americans, no matter what race or color they are probably in the middle. There are few are far right, few are far left. But I'm going to tell you, the key to this election, we got to ride this wave, but we got to keep this wave going. We got to mobilize our base and get them to the polls whenever early voting is, and in November, on November 5th, I think, because let me tell you something. As we are motivated and energized, we know that people that don't look like us, that are white supremacists, or suffer from white privilege and what have you, whether a lot or a little, they're energized, they're mobilized, right? We've seen this show before with Barack Obama. We're going to see part 2 of this show with Kamala Harris, starting with the racial epithets and calling her a cat lady with no children and colored sororities and all these dog whistles. I think they're going to do worse than that because they just have lost their minds about having another person of color to be in the White House, which is a good thing for America if you really believe in America and her promise to be better and in search of a more perfect union. This is what it's about. And then you and I talk a lot about 2043, when we're going to be a country of color. It's just appropriate. The biggest advantage that Dems have now over the Republicans, both parties were going to have to reform after this election, right? But this decision by Biden not only has saved our democracy by him stepping down, more importantly, has pushed the Democrats into a new era. They're making the change and transition early of energizing new leadership into the party, as opposed to the Republicans who are stuck with MAGA and stuck with Trumpism, which is going to go nowhere. I don't think the more people of color that make up the majority of this country. So we'll have to see. But we got to get the vote out. That's the bottom line, no matter what.
Scott, you mentioned earlier all these DEI attacks. This is Harriet Hagman, who is this congresswoman from Wyoming who beat Liz Cheney. And you want to hear stupidity, listen to this.
Well, I think she's one of the weakest candidates I've ever seen in the history of our country. I mean, intellectually, just really kind of the bottom of the barrel. And from the standpoint of just who she is and the policies, the positions that she's taken, her failure to do anything in terms of the border, that sort of thing, I think it's just a failure from top to bottom. I think she was a DEI hire, and I think that that's what we're seeing. And I just don't think that they have anybody else. I just think that they're in real.
I mean, you want to sit here and...
Who are they talking about, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris?
Right. I mean, Rebecca, what's hilarious is J.D. Vance has no resume.
None.
No resume. And you want to sit here and say that nonsense? I'm like, come on. Boy, these white Republicans just crack me the hell up.
It's like, child, please. Give us examples of how Kamala Harris isn't intelligent. You know what? Like, if you want to have that conversation, then have that conversation, but actually have proof, not just fictitious assertions. Kamala Harris, as we all know, went to Howard University for undergrad. Howard University is one of the preeminent universities in the world. It is a destination campus that people all across the globe want to attend, and it's very competitive to get into Howard University. So it's really interesting when there is nothing left to say, then it is dog whistles, talking about a DEI candidate. But once again, we're hearing even Democrats saying, oh, we have to balance the ticket. It should be a white man. So isn't that a racial preference? Isn't that DEI? Isn't that affirmative action for white men by saying, hey, it must be a white man? So it's interesting with how on the right we're hearing the language, but it's also interesting how, listening to the language on the left.
Yeah, Roland, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You that, Roland? Okay, let me tell you when the ass whooping starts. When the spanking that ass starts. Okay, when the first debate between Kamala and Trump, as she prosecutes the case, and he tries to wiggle and lie, and she brings him back in the corner and continues to whip his ass with facts. Let me tell you something. She gonna pull away. I'm not being overexcited about it, but she's gonna prosecute the case against Trump and never let America forget what he's selling them as a con artist and what MAGA is selling them in 2025. That's when she pulls away. That's when she shows America what this con man is, this felon, this fraudster, and this sexual abuser. She's the perfect messenger for it. And that's when she pulls away. She may pull away before, but you're going to see that gap of another 2, 3, 4, 5 points when she spanks that ass in that first debate. If I were him, I wouldn't do it, but he's got to do it.
Well, what's also interesting is you have folks like Megyn Kelly talking about, the sexual history of Kamala Harris should be talked about. D.L. Hughley just posted this tweet here. He said, you realize the people who bring up Kamala Harris' sexual history are planning on voting for a rapist.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's like, you want you want to go there? Okay, well, we can talk about Ivanka Trump's divorce where she said Trump raped her. Mm-hmm. She actually said that. Mm-hmm.
On the record.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And now she's buried on a Trump golf course.
Right. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like Megyn Kelly, shut the hell up. But it shows you when you have to stoop that low, you have nothing.
Well, you don't know what else to do.
Even if you wanted to go there, this came up in 2019. So it's already been, using the terms of an attorney, it's been asked and answered. So why are we going there again? Megyn Kelly used to be a prosecutor, so she ought to know about asked and answered. So why are we bringing this up again when it already came up in 2019?
That's because you ain't got nothing to say. Scott, go ahead.
Well, she's talking about the affair 20, 30 years ago. My goodness gracious, that dog won't hunt because, first of all, Donald Trump's sexual history is going to be a killer. They're not going to keep that line up. They're trying out different lines, Roland. You know that, right? They're running out things. They're trying to see what catches, if you will. But her relationship with Willie Brown, and I'm friends with both of them and have been for several years, that's so old news and stuff. In fact, Willie Brown helped her and helped several other black, brown, yellow, and white politicos who were under his tutelage when he was head of the state legislature. He's a legend and a giant there, has helped several people. So it's all bullshit. I'm sorry for my profanity, but I just can't take it no more.
So this morning on Fox News, Fox and Friends, this actually happened this morning, which was quite interesting. So roll it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To President Biden, who is muddling his way through speeches. People know he couldn't go more than better, right? Yep, couldn't go more than 15 minutes. She's very good on the prompter. No one even doubted that. She had 3,000 people there. Why are they there? A lot of them has to do with, hey, I'm a Democrat. I thought we were going to go down in flames. Now we have a shot. But the problem with Kamala Harris, number one, she has not had her record exploited heavily because people thought and marginalized her. Even in the Democratic Party, they said, man, what a bad choice Joe Biden made. Number two is she hasn't sat down for an interview. When she sits down in an interview and says, do you want to fund ICE? Where do you stand on Medicare for all? Why didn't you show up? the most recent decision already you got to question. She will not show up for the Prime Minister's joint session of Congress today. She'd rather address in the summer a sorority, a college sorority, like she can't get out of that. So that's her decision, and that's her decision to back up the protesters.
And how about the border?
Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to roll that back just about 15 seconds. Then I want you to play it, and so play.
On ICE, where do you stand on Medicare for all? Why didn't you show up? The most recent decision already you got to question. She will not show up for the Prime Minister's joint session of Congress today. She'd rather address in the summer a sorority, a college sorority, like she can't get out of that. So that's her decision.
All right, so Eugene Daniels of Politico first flagged this, and he said, Kilmeade, I'll go to my iPad, she'd rather address in the summer a sorority, a colored sorority, like she can't get out of that. So then he said, I spoke to Fox News about this and plan on speaking to Brian when he is off air. They made it clear to me that he used college, not colored. The audio is garbled, but I'm going to take Brian and his team at their word. So let's just do this here. Just take it back about 15 more seconds. And I want y'all to listen, and then I'm going to respond to something.
Show up. The most recent decision already you got to question. She will not show up for the Prime Minister's joint session of Congress today. She'd rather address in the summer a sorority, a college sorority, like she can't get out of that. So that's her decision, and that's her decision to back up the protesters.
And how about the border?
So he said a college sorority. Here's the problem. To pronounce the word college, it's college. To say colored, it's colored. Ka and ka do not sound the same. It's a little hard to say, oh no, I said college. No. Now, some other people are like, no, he said college. College. That sounds to me like colored. Scott?
What else can I add to that? It's so simple. It's the Queen's English, man. We're all educated and trained to speak the King's English, the Queen's English. And you're right, college versus colored. He said colored, and it wasn't garbled, and it wasn't rushed. It was intentional, colored. And the rest of the guests sat there because that's how they think. See, white privilege is amazing. That it's okay to say color, even if you meant to say college. And I doubt that because you're programmed. And think about his other words. He criticized Kamala for not coming to the Netanyahu speech. Well, their Republican nominee wasn't at the speech because he was campaigning.
I'm sorry, say it again. You said Senator J.D. Vance wasn't there?
No, he wasn't. He was campaigning somewhere in the country and blew that off. But they want to hold that against her. By the way, J.D. Vance isn't meeting with Netanyahu like Kamala Harris is tomorrow or the next day with Joe Biden. So what are they talking? It's so hypocritical. You got to sort through everything they say. And you say this all the time. You taught me this in my debates with Republicans on news shows and stuff. Respond with facts. Don't respond with superlatives or broad strokes. Kill them with facts. And every time they start talking that trash about Kamala or the Democrats or even Biden, you hit them with facts because they don't have their facts. Because the facts aren't in their favor, just like their policies are not favored by the majority of Americans. You wouldn't have to suppress the vote if you believe that your policies and your personality were a winning combination in this country. So that's why they suppressed the vote.
And don't forget, Seb Gorka, one of Donald Trump's longtime aides, said this on one of these conservative networks.
To Joe Biden, when the big donors say, you're not getting a red cent, we are pulling the plug on the campaign, then the Democrats are going to say, Joe, what do you want? And right now, Hunter is negotiating. I want a pardon. We want extra bags of cash. You're going to give us sinecures. The hostage takers are now negotiating
for the presidency.
But I mean, do these donors really think that Kamala Harris is going to do better in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania than Joe Biden would? I mean, that's because it can't be anybody else, right?
Hey, Rob, you're being logical. Stop it, all right? She's a DEI hire, right? She's a woman. She's colored, therefore she's got to be good. Yeah. And at least her brain.
I guess Seb meant she's a college graduate. Rebecca, go ahead.
So 2 things here. So going back to that Fox News clip, I heard college, and in the context of saying, hey, she's speaking to a sorority, a college sorority in the summer. So I do think context matters here, because for white sororities, they are only during college and they only happen during the school year. They're not meeting or doing anything in the summer, versus black sororities are lifelong commitments, which means summer, fall, spring, winter, we are organizing, we are doing the work in the community. So based upon that context, I do think that Brian was saying college. But now to the Newsmax clip, listening to them talk about DEI and people, in essence saying people who aren't qualified, none of those 3 people are qualified to do what they're doing or to give any type of political advice or policy advice in this country. Let's just be clear about who those 3 are.
Absolutely. And look, this is also a perfect example of white folks who have no idea about black people. They don't know any. I remember the Washington Post. Was it the last campaign when the Washington Post writer? They were making this squealing noise when Kamala Harris at the AK convention. They have no clue about black culture. They have no idea. They don't even understand it. They don't even realize when the other night we had to Win with the Black Men Call and Wes Moore came on, the governor of Maryland, and I was like, yo, what up, frat? They looking like, what the hell? They throwing the hang loose? Like, what are they doing? They know nothing. And so what happens is, and then you got Lawrence Jones sitting there, duh.
Oh, he is the worst.
I mean, and made no effort to say, hey guys, and matter of fact, I don't even know he know about Divine Nine. But again, this is also what you see when you see these people who know nothing. See, they think fraternities, why are you still wearing your fraternity shirt? You graduated a long time ago. Sorry, black frats and sororities ain't the same as white.
Exactly. But Roland, I've always thought that, the generational racism in this country seems unresolvable because people that don't look like you and me continue to teach racism to their kids or their environment around them or their neighborhoods teach, because that's the only way you have ongoing generational racism. But the one thing about Martin Luther King's dream of integration was that black and white together, right? And while he's no longer here, that hadn't killed his dream, but America is still very, very segregated. So there's no racial tolerance, there's no racial knowledge of cultural differences whatsoever. And so we just matriculate. That's why white privilege continues. But if Sunday is the most segregated day in America, it's true. And yet, if we were more integrated, if we wanted to be, if white folks cared and saw us as human beings, then, we could eliminate, I think, tell me what you think, some of this racial insensitivity, some of this white privilege, and at least begin to understand and appreciate the differences in our cultures and our lives as positives, not negatives. I hope I'm not being too hopeful, but if that were ever to happen, you wouldn't have a whole lot of this nonsense unless you just were MAGA and you just are a white supremacist.
So, Scott, I disagree here. I do not think that King's dream was actually integration. I think King's dream was desegregation. Desegregation doesn't equal integration. When you do integration in this country, it is really assimilation. It is the devaluing and the losing of Black American culture in America. So I think, to your point, though, is the dream is if we're able to remove barriers to opportunities for every group in this country, especially Black folks who literally built this country, were never paid, never compensated for building this country. I think if those barriers and those things in law, I think if those things were removed, then we would actually see Black communities with the ability to actually flourish in this country. And I think that's what King's dream was.
Well, yeah, Rebecca, I got it. I don't disagree with you, but I don't think my presentation, I didn't contemplate assimilation, because I'm talking more about racial tolerance, cultural tolerance, and appreciation of our different cultures, and that is a strength, not a weakness. And if we did that, coupled with white folks stop teaching their kids racism, because I don't think most Black people are taught to hate white people because of the color of their skin. I don't. I've never been taught that. My parents were civil rights activists, and so I'm more talking about integration without giving up your culture or your racial pride, because they don't give up theirs. So I'm putting us on equal footing there. And I understand what you're saying, and I get it, and I don't disagree with you, except my remarks weren't going to go that far, because assimilation is a threat to is a threat to integration, in my opinion. I think we agree on that. So I wish we could live in a world like that, but we need cooperation. We need cooperation from folks who don't look like us, and we just don't have it.
All right, listen, folks, hold tight 1 second. When we come back, we're going to play some of that speech of Vice President Kamala Harris today at the Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated Grand Boulay in Indianapolis. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You can send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Farquhar, executive producer of Proud Family.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, as I said, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke today at the Grand Boulay of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated in Indianapolis. Thousands packed the hall to hear her speak. Here, you see the reception with that. Turn it up. You see how they received her when she walked out to greet them. Here's what she had to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Please have a seat. Good afternoon. I was just saying to your most glorious president, Stacey N.C. Grant, she and I talked about this visit months ago, sitting together, having a meeting in the Oval Office. And we were, she invited me then to attend today. And I just want to, if I can, I just want to thank you in front of all of the sisters who are here. She has provided years of support and friendship, and she always, like everyone here knows, she always shows up, and I'm so, so deeply grateful. Thank you. And to everyone here, it is so good to be with you. To the former presidents who are in attendance, to the International Board of Directors, and to all of the fine members of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. It is my great, great honor to be with you today. And I love you back. And also, on Air Force 2 joining me is Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager-Dove. And I know here is also our dearest Mrs. Opal Lee, the grandmother of Juneteenth. Oh, she was right there. And to all of the distinguished ladies, I thank you so very much for this warm welcome. And I will begin by saying a few words about our President Joe Biden. So tonight, yes, thank you, yes. So tonight, our president will address the nation about his decision to step down as a candidate, and he will talk about not only the work, the extraordinary work that he has accomplished, but about his work in the next 6 months. And so before he does, and while I'm here with you, I want to just share with you a little bit about him, based on what I know, based on personal experience. Joe Biden is a leader with bold vision. He cares about the future. He thinks about the future. He has extraordinary determination and profound compassion for the people of our country. And I say that because I know that we are all deeply, deeply grateful for his service to our nation. And to the sisters of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, I thank you for your incredible service to our nation as well. You know, I know who we all are. I know who is here. And I know, therefore, that we share a vision for the future of our nation. A future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. A future of social justice, health justice, economic justice, just as you have laid out in this year's theme. Ours is a vision of a future in which we realize the promise of America. And I deeply believe in the promise of America, a promise of freedom, opportunity, and justice, not for some, but for all. And for generations, the finer women of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated have fought to build that brighter future. During the Civil Rights Movement, you marched for voting rights, economic justice, and an end to segregation. For more than 50 years, you have worked with the March of Dimes to lift up the urgent issue of maternal health. And from the 1980s, you inaugurated Zeta Days. And I will tell you, when I was a United States Senator, I would see this group of powerful leaders walking through the halls of Congress in white and blue. And I always knew I was looking at some of the most powerful advocates for justice in America. Truly. And of course, your leadership continued in 2020, when during the height of a pandemic, you helped elect Joe Biden, President of the United States, and me as the first woman Vice President of the United States. And I thank you. And now, in this moment, our nation needs your leadership once again. In this moment, I believe we face a choice between two different visions for our nation. One focused on the future, the other focused on the past. And with your support, I am fighting for our nation's future. And let us be clear about what that future looks like. I know the leaders in this room, and I know the future we believe in and we fight for. We here believe in a future where, for example, everyone has affordable health care, which is why our administration capped the cost of insulin for our seniors at $35 a month. We believe in a future where no child has to grow up in poverty, which is why I helped pass the child tax credit, which cut child poverty in half and cut black child poverty even more. We believe in a future where the economy works for working people. That is why we forgave student loan debt for more than 5 million Americans. And if you or anyone you know benefited from that, please testify. And we are finally making it so that medical debt can no longer be used against your credit score. And it is because of our collective vision for the future that we continue to fight for affordable child care, affordable elder care, and paid family leave. We here believe in a future where all women and all mothers are safe. That is why, as Vice President, I have elevated and took on the issue of maternal mortality, knowing that women in America die at a higher rate in connection with childbirth than women in any other wealthy nation in the world. And black women are 3 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth. And for too long, this has been a crisis in our country, and it is time that we recognize the crisis it is. In fact, when I took office, I challenged every state in our nation on this issue because, you see, I said, look, we need to extend Medicaid postpartum coverage from a measly 2 months to a full year. And I'm proud to report, whereas when I issued the challenge, only 3 states offered a full year of coverage, now 46 states do. So I say, as we work to build a brighter future and to move our nation forward, we must also recognize there are those who are trying to take us backward. You may have seen their agenda. Part of it is called Project 2025. Now, can you believe they put that in writing? 900 pages of it. Project 2025. A plan to return America to a dark past. They intend to cut Medicare, to repeal our $35 cap on insulin, to eliminate the Department of Education, to end programs like Head Start, which would take away preschool for hundreds of thousands of children in our communities. Let's be clear. This represents an outright attack on our children, our families, and our future. These extremists want to take us back, but we are not going back. We are not going back. Ours is a fight for the future, and ours is a fight for freedom. Across our nation, we are witnessing a full-on assault on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. The freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to live without fear of bigotry and hate, The freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. The freedom to learn and acknowledge our true and full history. And the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government telling her what to do. And in the face of these attacks, we must continue to stand together in defense of freedom. We who believe in the sacred freedom to vote will make sure then that every American has the ability to cast their ballot and have it counted. We who believe that every person in our nation should be free from gun violence will finally pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban. We who believe that every person in our nation should be free from bigotry, discrimination, and hate will continue to fight for equality and justice for all. And we who believe in reproductive freedom will fight for a woman's right to choose, because one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do. You know, when he was president, Donald Trump, former president, handpicked 3 members of the United States Supreme Court because he intended for them to overturn Roe v. Wade. The United States Supreme Court, previously the court of Thurgood and RBG. And as he intended, they did. Well, let me tell you something. When I am president of the United States, and when Congress passes a law to restore those freedoms, I will sign it into law. We are not playing around. So in conclusion, to the incredible members of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, I say, there is so much at stake in this moment. There's so much at stake. And again, then, in this moment, our nation, as it always has, is counting on you to energize, to organize, and to mobilize, to register folks to vote, to get them to the polls, and to continue to fight for the future our nation and her people deserve. And we know when we organize, mountains move. When we mobilize, nations change. And when we vote, we make history. So let us continue to fight with optimism, with faith, and with hope, because when we fight, we win. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. God bless you.
You hear their speech, and you hear her lay out very precisely what the arguments are going to be over the next 100+ days, Rebecca.
Absolutely. It's going to be really interesting watching the next couple of weeks, especially with the Olympics starting soon. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the momentum that we're seeing behind Vice President Harris. Just to watch to see if this momentum will be sustained even while the Olympics are going, and then sliding right into the DNC, where usually and historically there is a jump in polling post-convention. It's called the post-convention bounce. And so watching these numbers and watching the trends, especially looking at Black women, Black men, looking at Hispanic women, looking at white women, and then looking at young people. So for the viewers, those are the numbers, those are the trend lines to start to watch. Because one thing that we saw on the Republican side is that Trump has already maxed out his ceiling at about 47%. So it's going to be interesting to see if Vice President Harris could close that gap in which Biden was down. And then, you know what, we're in for what's going to be a a very exciting head-to-head race.
Scott?
Well, Roland, I'm shaking my head because I talk for a living, and boy, I'd hate to run up against Kamala Harris with that powerful speech. I mean it. I talk for a living. And let me tell you something. That ain't the Kamala Harris is not the same candidate who ran for president 4 years ago.
Of course not.
That's a new candidate. That's a candidate that's battle-worn for 4 years. She's got confidence, she's collected, she's comfortable, and she's bringing that message. And I gotta tell you, man, that's not the same candidate. And that's gonna be the difference maker. She may make her mistakes, but she ain't stumbling. And I gotta tell you, that debate, when it comes, I keep telling you, that's when she separates herself. Because that message she's got, who would disagree with that message in America? Oh, even Republicans. They'll disagree maybe, but how do you not like that message? How do you say, after listening to that message, I'm not gonna vote for her?
Well,
I'm gonna vote for the lies the Republicans are telling them.
Well, first of all, we know exactly how they're going to vote, so that is no shock at all. All right.
Very impressive. All I'm saying, Roland, she's a different candidate.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, it's 5 years, and so she should be a different candidate. Hold tight 1 second, folks. When we come back, we're going to pay tribute to the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Houston. She passed away at the age of 74. We have a number of folks who will be joining us to share their remembrances of her. That is next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Next on The Black Table with me, Greg Carr, we welcome the Black Star Network's very own Roland Martin, who joins us to talk about his new book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. The book explains so much about what we're going through in this country right now, and how, as white people head toward becoming a racial minority, it's going to get, well, let's just say, even more interesting.
We are going to see more violence. We're going to see more vitriol, because as each day passes, it is a nail in that coffin.
The one and only Roland Martin on the next Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Good job, good pay, good life. Would you be willing to walk away from it to achieve real wealth? Well, that's exactly what this woman did. And boy, did it pay off.
Once you make the decision that this is the direction that you're going to go in, I do believe that there's power in having a decided heart.
Hear her story on The Next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, on Black Star Network.
Farquhar, executive producer, Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, on Friday, we lost a great freedom fighter in Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. She served with distinction for more than 30 years representing the 18th Congressional District in Houston. Anyone who knows her knows her booming voice. She was ubiquitous at various events in Houston. She was going to speak, and she was going to be armed with a resolution and other items as well. You name it, she was there. She replaced Craig Washington. She beat him for that particular seat. This is the same seat that was held by one of the greatest members of Congress, Mickey Leland, and also the great Barbara Jordan. And so she took pride in that particular distinction. Of course, I've known Sheila Jackson Lee longer than anybody else in Congress. When I worked at the Houston Defender as an intern in 1990, her office was actually shared an office with an attorney right next door in our building. And so, again, so she was a judge. She served on the city council before getting elected to Congress. She ran for mayor in the fall, losing to State Senator John Whitmire. In the course, she then ran to the primary and won the primary, but announced shortly thereafter that she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I knew something was different. This was the last time she was on our show, but I knew something was different when I saw her at the funeral of Reverend Dr. William Lawson at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. And I saw how frail she looked. Her voice sounded a lot different. And I texted some fraternity brothers who knew her well, and they told me that cancer had returned. She beat breast cancer before, but pancreatic cancer came back viciously in the fall, and again, we lost her on Friday. Now, her services have been established. It's going to be a week-long services there in Houston. Of course, earlier this week, on Monday, the Congressional Black Caucus did a special tribute to her in the U.S. Capitol. Her body will lie in state at the Houston City Council, of course, where she served. On Monday, July 29th, the public can pay respects, where she'll be lying in state in the City Hall Rotunda from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central. Tuesday will be a viewing and a service at God's Grace Community Church, taking place from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Community viewing and farewell service will be held at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church in 3rd Ward on Wednesday, July 30th. The viewing begins at 11 a.m. with the service starting at 3 p.m. And her Celebration of Life service will take place at 11 a.m. on Thursday, August 1st. At Fallbrook Church. Folks must pre-register to attend that particular service. As I said, she passed away July 19th at the age of 74 after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. As I said, absolute fierce champion. So many folks knew her well, including my next guest, Claude Cummings Jr. He's the president of the Communication Workers of America. Also, gospel artist Yolanda Adams, legal analyst Monique Presley as well. And then we're going to, of course, be also joined with the mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner. Let me first go to, Sylvester's actually there. Let me first go to Mayor Turner. You knew her well. When you were mayor, you would see her wherever you went. She likely was there. We used to always joke in H-Town that if that microphone was free for 30 seconds, Sheila was gonna grab it.
Hey, Ron. Sheila was everywhere. Okay, she was working every day. She never took off. Serving the people of the 18th Congressional District and beyond. That was her mission. And she loved doing it, okay? She loved doing it, and she did it well. I think I described her as the people's champion, an exceptional public servant. And yes, she was in Congress, but let me tell you, her focus was on meeting the needs of people in her district. And no one was left out. No one. Now you can differ with her on the politics, but you have to admire her for her work ethic and her love for community. And I've known her for 44 years, and I'll miss her.
Claude?
Yes, hey, Roland, and to your guests and to Mayor Turner and Yolanda, we've lost a true champion in Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. It's simple as that. I never saw her back down for a fight on behalf of working people, And her track record of accomplishments in Congress includes legislation that uplifted countless families. Wherever I travel, and I travel a lot of places around this country, I always get asked about Sheila. Claude, how is Sheila Jackson Lee doing? And she was a champion. CWA called her a champion. And she was a champion for labor. But she stood up for working people, and she had a 100% voting record in Congress for legislation that was important to working people. And let me say this about her. Mayor Turner talked about her commitment. I don't care what type of storm we had. I don't care if it was a hurricane. I don't care if we had freezes that were taking place here. Sheila made sure that this community, not just the 18th Congressional District, but every person who needed something from her, they got it.
Right.
Well, we watched her truck milk in here during COVID for children. And there were families from all over this county that would come up and ask for milk for their children. The government couldn't even find milk, but somehow Sheila found milk for children and had it shipped in here. When there are storms, when there are floods, Sheila would get out in boats, put on gear herself, and pull people out of their homes. That's just the kind of person she was. She understood clearly the people didn't work for her. She worked for them. Right. And she did it well, and she is going to be missed.
Yolanda Adams, you're shaking your head there. And as I said, you're native there in Houston. And anybody knows if you went to an event in H-Town and you went to a black event, she may not be at the beginning of the program, but she gonna walk in there with a folder in her hand with a resolution.
Yeah, you are so right, Roland. I used to ask her, how did she get from one side of town to the other side of town right at the nick of time to be called to do what she does? I mean, it's amazing, you know, growing up in the city, seeing her impact, knowing how much she fought for every individual in this, not just in the state, but just in the world. She just loves people. And sometimes people who love people the way she loves people, with all of the agendas that had to be met for the day, sometimes, you know, you have to look at, like, wait a minute, okay, when does she sleep? When does she get a chance to eat? When does she rest? But she would rather be a champion for the people and then eat when she could let go lacking. And so those are the things that I am going to remember about her. I am going to always remember her steadfast love for her city. She loved the city of Houston. And let me tell you something, just like she loved the city of Houston and the state of Texas, she loved gospel music so much so that she made them give us a month. She made them give us a resolution. She made them see gospel music as the historic part of the American fabric that it is. So my hat has always been off to her. My love and my heart has always been for her. I will make sure that the world knows that without Sheila Jackson Lee, a lot of the stuff that happens in gospel music would not have happened without that champion in the Hall of Congress.
Right. Now, I guarantee you, all three of y'all have experienced what I'm about to tell y'all. So I was at, and I'm gonna try to see if I can find a photo. I was at a Houston Texans game, and Congresswoman was there with Carl Davis. Okay. And she tells me about this gospel concert happening at the Kennedy Center. I was like, oh, okay, all right. 2 weeks later, I get an email with the run of show. And I respond and I say, I'm sorry, when did I agree to MC this event? And so when that night, and I think, Yolanda, you may have performed that night. That night, I was killing her on the microphone. Oh, I was killing her. I was like, y'all didn't even pay for my parking. Oh, I was killing her. I told her, I said, look, Congresswoman, look, we can't be here all night, so you can't preach a sermon, because Mayor Turner, she'll try to preach a sermon in a heartbeat.
She will.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, you were going to do it Sheila Jackson Lee's way.
Right.
Or she was going to find a way to turn what you wanted into the Sheila Jackson Lee way.
That's right.
That's
right.
Sheila. And on that same line, as mayor, Sheila would bypass me, and she would call directly to my department head. So I called Sheila. I said, Congresswoman, if you need something, call my chief of staff or call me. But don't go directly to my department heads, okay? Okay, brother. Okay, brother. I hear you. That lasted only for a minute. And she went right back and did it again and again and again. But look, let me tell you, you were not going to say no to Sheila Jackson Lee. When her mind was set, that was it, okay? Right. And that is what made her the great person that she was. Right. Because we all knew she loved people, loved communities, and wanted to make things better. And let me tell you, she was tough, but she had a gentle heart.
That's right.
She was tough, but a gentle heart.
Clark, go ahead.
I was going to tell you something that you'll never see in the newspaper that she's done. You'll probably never hear a congressmember say anything about this. But I was elected vice president of the local CWA union here back in 1986. And Sheila would call me about donations. And we'd send a check for $2,000, $3,000. And one day she grabbed me and she said, Claude, why is it we only get this small amount of money? All of the white Congress members are getting $10,000 a cycle. And that's what we could legally give. And so I started asking questions. And what I was told is that, well, Claude, black Congress members are in what we call safe districts. So they don't need the same amount of money that white Congress members have. And I said, listen, that doesn't sound right. So I started doing some investigations, and I found out that they just were not giving them the money when they should. And so I started raising hell about it, not just in CWA, but all across the country. And because of that, we started maxing out with all of our Congress members, $10,000 a cycle. And not only did it spread here in Houston, but it spread across the country, because I let it be known that we should not be treating our black Congress members different than we were treating the white Congress members. Mm-hmm. And so every black Congress member that's getting their full share of donation that we can legally give are getting it now, simply because Sheila Jackson Lee raised that question with me. And I made sure that started happening. Mayor Green talks about it all.
Yep.
When he speaks and introduces me. But it was because of Sheila raising that issue that is happening now.
Yolanda, I know you got a surprise Sheila Jackson Lee story.
Listen, we don't have enough time for all of my surprise Sheila Jackson Lee stories. Listen, well, one of the things, like Mr. Claude and our mayor, he's still my mayor. There was a time when they were taking out some of the funds for my grandmother's district, where they were cutting out some of the senior programs and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I don't know what I can do. I'm going to give a call to Sheila Jackson Lee. Called her, and everything worked out. But then she said, hey, I need you in Washington in 48 hours, because I need you to pray on the floor of Congress. And I'm like, you just gave me 48 hours. That's all I got, 48 hours. And I'm like, okay, I'll be there. So yes, Roland, I've had many conversations where it was like, hey, I need you here for this. And because of all that she's done for our great city, our great state, our great globe, I was there. You know me. If it wasn't, if it was a contract issue, it may have been like, But no, anytime I could be there, you know, she was hilarious too. She had a sense of humor.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
Absolutely. Well, she is certainly going to be missed. She was in. Look, as you said, you were like, man, woman, will you slow down all the stuff you keep going to? But that's how she was. Houston is going to honor her next week. Certainly. Yeah, go ahead.
And smart.
I want to add one thing. We owe a great deal to her family.
Yes.
Right.
She's been married. She was married to Elwin for more than 50 years.
Yes.
Okay. And to Erica and to Jason, that family gave a lot, sacrificed a lot.
Right.
And I just want to remember them and thank them. And thank them.
Yeah.
Because when she was with us and everybody else, she was not with them. But it was a family deal. They knew their mom.
Yes.
And they understood her mission.
Yep.
And living out her purpose. And they just was right there. So in her latter days, I can't tell you the love and affection that they gave to their mom and Elwin gave to his wife. So, and quite frankly, it still hadn't dawned on me.
Right.
Because she was our superwoman.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Indeed.
I was just going to say, I never thought in my life that there'd be a time when Sheila wasn't around.
Right.
Simple as that. And she was one of the smartest people I know.
Right.
Roland, once I was asked to introduce her at an event here in Houston, and her staff had prepared her for the wrong event. And she stepped up to me and she said, Claude, I just need 15 minutes. Just give me 15 minutes. You filibuster, do whatever you need to do, but give me 15 minutes. And I watched her prepare a speech in 15 minutes. She spoke for 30 to 40 minutes on the theme for that particular event. You know, she was just absolutely brilliant, to be quite honest with you. And that just absolutely amazed me to see her be able to do that when she wasn't, you know, her staff had prepared her for the wrong type of event. But just how smart she was.
Indeed. Yolanda Adams, Claude Cummings, my alpha brother, Sylvester Turner. I appreciate y'all sharing your thoughts and reflections regarding the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Thanks, Roland.
Thanks, Roland.
All right. Thank you, Roland. Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it. Thank
Bye-bye,
you very
Mayor.
much.
Yolanda.
We're going to go to a break. We come back. We'll hear from Monique Presley. We'll hear from Congressman Al Green. We'll hear from Scott Bolden. We'll hear from Rebecca as well. We'll also hear from Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who also paid tribute to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee on the floor of the House. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network and a special tribute to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. How are you being of service to others? Doing for someone beside yourself is such a big part of living a balanced life. We'll talk about what that means, the generation that missed that message, and the price that we're all paying as a result.
Well, now all I see is mama getting up in the morning, going to work, maybe dropping me off at school, then coming back home at night. And then I really didn't have any type of time with the person that really was there to nurture me and prepare me and to show me what a life looked like and what service looked like.
That's all on a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder.
Right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
That's how Sheila was. She was a person who was obsessed with taking care of people and changing the world and making life better for everyone. Our personal friendship was deep and broad. You remember she received the John Lewis Award recently for the most amount of 1 minute. And she called me that morning. She says, Barbara, I can't be there, but I want you to accept this award for me. I said, Sheila, they're not going to let me accept an award for you. She said, just do like I would do and tell them you're going to accept it anyway. But that was Sheila. She would not take no for an answer. Also, finally, let me just say, I was her personal photographer. Many of you may have been also. Sheila wanted to make sure she was in every single picture, and if a real photographer wasn't around, she pulled me. And I was looking at my pictures. I have more pictures of Sheila than myself because she made sure she got those pictures taken. But they weren't necessarily for her. They were for her constituents, for her family, for her grandchildren, for her husband. She wanted people to know and to be informed about her work as their public servant. Sheila deserves to rest now. She was a force of nature. Her spirit will live forever. She was fearless. She was loving. She was powerful. And I'm reminded of one scripture, 2 Timothy. And this reminds me of Sheila. For God did not give us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. May Sheila's soul rest in peace. May she rest in power, and may she rest. God bless you.
Folks, welcome back. Scott Bolden. We talk about force of nature. And again, if you were anywhere in D.C., in Houston, hell, you never know when Sheila Jackson Lee was going to pop up. She was going to be there, and you were going to hear that booming voice.
And she loved being there. You could ask Sheila to say a few words if she showed up, and she was a great extemporaneous speaker. I knew Sheila before she was a congressman by reputation because she was an incredible litigator out of Houston. She was a judge. She was very active with the NBA, and she was brilliant as a practitioner. And then secondly, let me just say this, that when you take over the seat of someone like Barbara Jordan or Mickey Leland,
yeah,
there's a whole lot of uplift. You gotta fill those shoes. And I think she didn't just fill those shoes in her service. She exceeded and built upon what her predecessors did. Of uplift, you gotta fill those shoes. And I like her, but she was certainly respected because when she started talking in that booming voice, she knew how to use voice inflection to make her point. And she spoke with authority because she was a former judge. And you believed it. I don't think she left anybody in disbelief or people saying, well, I don't agree, a whole lot of time. So she was an awesome lady. Godspeed.
Rebecca, she was a proud member of your sorority. And in fact, two of the members of Congress, both women, it was Eddie Bernice Johnson and Sheila Jackson Lee. We lost Eddie Bernice Johnson last year, also an AKA. This is a photo of the 9 AKAs in Congress. You see Sheila right there in the middle between Lisa and Alma Adams as well. Just your thoughts about the Congresswoman.
The Congresswoman was my soror. She was also my Link sister as a member of the Links Incorporated. And she is now an ancestor. What I will say, I remember when I first met her, when I was a young staffer on the Hill, I was scared of her. I was scared of her because she was very tenacious. She was very stern, but I also knew she was very effective and that it is important to have voices and Black voices in the halls of Congress who will speak truth to power, who will bring the power, who was undeniable. It didn't matter if people disagreed with her on the policies or on the politics, but you were going to respect her. You were going to listen to her, and that was a fact. And so to see more of our people transition and become ancestors, and also understand that, yes, there has to be a new generation that comes up, but there is so much intelligence, there's so much brain power, there is so much legacy, there's just so much that we will be losing from Congress by no longer having Congresswoman Jackson Lee. The other thing that I would say, I remember I was on a flight from D.C. to Houston, and someone mentioned earlier about her, in fundraising. I never saw this before. But I remember she got up in the middle of that flight and she shook hands with a lot of people on the flight and was like, I am Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And I think she was also asking for donations as well. So I would tell you, my eyes got real big because, I've been on flights with other members of Congress, but I'd never seen anyone get up and do that. But she did. And who was going to check her? Nobody. She was that person.
Monique Presley, we did a broadcast of Roland Martin Unfiltered in Houston, and we're like, okay, when the Congresswoman gonna get here? We run out of time, the show's gonna end, and she was calling, now look, don't go off the air till I get there. This is a photo actually from that broadcast. Go right ahead. Monique, go ahead.
Okay. I thought you were going to play something. Yeah, I have our text messages from that night, and they have given me some laughs and some comfort as I have been dealing with what, for me personally, is just a staggering loss. I'm a little Black girl from Texas who knew from the time I was 7 years old that I wanted to be a lawyer, who knew shortly thereafter that I wanted to be able to go and travel to D.C., where people were doing things to change things in this country and to fight for justice. And in Texas, the heroes came out of the representatives of the 18th district. So I grew up emulating Barbara Jordan, Mickey Leland, wanting to be the defense lawyer extraordinaire like Craig Washington. And then there was Sheila Jackson Lee, who was everything all in one. She was a shero to me for as long as I can remember. But what matters and is in my heart the most is that it is very rare that someone who you admire and emulate from afar, who you grow up wanting to be like a shero, you actually end up getting to know and work with and march with and meet with and help with projects and call for help. And everything everybody else said is the absolute truth. When I found out that she had transitioned, all I kept doing was sending people picture after picture after picture of time she had popped up, time she had shown up, time we weren't sure if she was going to be able to make it because she was coming from another event, but then had to get there, times when she walked a group of ours who were advocating for justice for George Floyd straight into Senator Schumer's office, and then they had to put us like in the conference room because she had brought too big of a group, and she kept saying, no, everybody come, and then she opened the meeting even though it was his meeting. This was who she was, and that type of force, the force that is Sheila Jackson Lee, transcends a body. I know that her body is no longer here, but I refuse to believe that much energy, that much power, that much force, that much life, that much spirit is gone. I know that she's in me. And I don't have to wonder about what she would expect from me because she was always so very clear with her expectations. I remember the first time she turned to me publicly and said some kind words, but then right after them, she said, and do not stop. And so that is what is, that's what's sticking with me in my heart today.
Monique, Rebecca, and Scott, I appreciate y'all reflections on this tribute to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Thanks so much. Folks, I want to turn right now to somebody who obviously knew her quite well. He represents a congressional district in Houston, my alpha brother, Congressman Al Green. Doc, how you doing?
Better than I deserve, man. Better than I deserve. And if I may say this, thank you for doing this, because with all of the news that we have, all of the things that could overshadow, you have decided to give her what she justly deserves for the time that she has served. And believe me, she served well.
We were going to do this on Monday, but then we had the Win with Black Men call, so I said, let's move it to Wednesday. Yeah. We absolutely were going to do it. I mean, just talk about, again, the two of you, simpatico, in Houston, tag teaming all over the city.
Well, you knew that whenever you were with Sheila, you had to bring your A game. Okay, you just couldn't show up and decide you were going to be on the program, because Sheila was going to bring her A game every time. So you had to be thoughtful. And she was always very sure. Sheila may not have always been right, but she was always sure. And you thought she was right, even if she was wrong. She really had that persona, that personality that just would envelop people. And she was a workaholic. She was the epitome of what a workaholic is.
Did you ever say, Sheila, slow down?
Well, you couldn't. It didn't make any difference. It wouldn't really. I remember once we went on a Codell together. I think it was either 7 or 10 days. Sheila had them stop the plane on the tarmac so that she could exit the plane and board another plane on the tarmac to go on another Codell. I mean, it was just that kind of energy in her, so that she wanted to do one thing after another after another. I don't know that she ever slept, really, because you could hear from her at any hour of the night, and she would always be alert, it appeared. She'd show up at any event. I'm gonna be honest with you. It wouldn't surprise me if Sheila showed up at her funeral. She was just there. She was there.
And she showed up, she gonna speak.
That's right. And I went to an event just recently with my Masonic Lodge, and you just expected Sheila to be there to give her commentary and to give encouragement. She was always giving encouragement. I know that she's going to be missed. She's missed already. She really is. But I know that what was said, I don't remember which of your guests said it, but she leaves a lot behind that will forever maintain this generation. I mean, this generation is going to have some of her in them. And I think we have to pass it on. She has given the torch. We have to pass it on. Now, I have to say this, Juneteenth. Juneteenth, as you know, is a very Texas holiday. Gordon Granger comes in.
Al Edwards.
That's right. Al Edwards is the father. But Al could not get it over the finish line at the national level.
Right.
Sheila pulled it over the finish line and made it a national holiday. So we don't ever want to forget Al, but I have to remember that Sheila was there too. They are two persons that will live forever in the annals of Texas history as people who wouldn't give up on something. I mean, she did not give up on that holiday, just as she did not give up on many other things that she engaged with. She was determined, and that determination is something that is unmatched, really.
A lot of times you have competition when you have members of Congress who are from the same city. And folk represent districts that are 700,000 members. Is it me, but did Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee believe she represented all of Houston, not just her district?
No, you're incorrect. She thought she represented all of the country. There were no boundaries for her, no boundaries for her. She believed that if something was happening, that it was her responsibility to be a part of it. And she would show up and let you know what her expectations were, and programs that were designed to be neat and only 2 or 3 people speaking. Sheila could come in and give a keynote speech at your program. She just felt that.
And the keynote speaker was sitting right there.
Right, and exactly. And the keynote speaker was applauding. But I do want to mention this before you run out of time. And again, I have to say thank you for what you're doing, because without this, we might not have the kind of history that we should have for her. Our legacy is sometimes lost, but you have brought on key people, and I see Gerald Womack over there.
Gerald Womack,
yeah.
Sonny beside Giles, they up next.
Sonny, okay, and I saw, is that Clyburn?
Yeah, I have a video of Congressman Clyburn
is there.
And we're going to have Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis joining us too.
And you had the former mayor, Sylvester Turner. I heard also Claude Cummings, CWA president. So I just want to thank you for this, because this is what's missing. Well, if we don't record and maintain our history, who will? Who will?
No, that's why we have that mural in there from Freedom's Journal.
Yeah.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
Well said, dear brother. But we cannot allow others to define who we were and who we are. This is why it's so important to have the Juneteenth holiday, so that we can remind ourselves of what really happened on Juneteenth, about the 25th Army Corps.
Yep.
Those black men that came into Galveston. Gordon Granger read a proclamation, but the black men came in. Now that it's a national holiday, thanks to Sheila, this can be talked about, because Juneteenth is really about liberation. We do celebration, but it was about liberation.
Right.
And we got to talk about those liberators, and a good many of them were black.
Absolutely.
And Jackson Lee was a liberator.
Congressman Al Green, Frat, always good to see you.
Thank you, dear brother.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks a bunch.
All right.
Folks, we're going to go to a break. We come back. We'll be joined by more folks who knew Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee well. And I know they got some stories. You're watching this tribute to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who passed away Friday at the age of 74 from pancreatic cancer, on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
I still have my NFL contract in my house. I have it in a case. It's 4 of them, my 4-year contract. I got a $600,000 signing bonus. My base salary for that first year was $150,000. Matter of fact,
$150,000.
$150,000. That's what I made. $150,000. Now think about it. My signing bonus was a forgivable loan, supposedly. When I got traded to the Colts, they made me pay back my signing bonus to them. I had to give them their $600,000 back.
Wow.
Yeah, I was so pissed. Because, I try to be a man of my word. I'm like, I'll give you your money back. You know, even though I know I earned that money, I gave them that money back. I gave them $600,000 back. But yet, I was this malcontent. I was a bad guy. I'm about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing right. Because I looked at, because you look at contract. Look at John Edwards. John Edwards was making $1 million, $800,000. I was making $150. I mean, I was doing everything. And I'm like, but yet I got so many letters, you know, so I just play for free and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you don't forget that kind of stuff. Right. That stuff is hurtful.
Me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
To you, Roland, and all those gathered, thank you very much for honoring Sheila Jackson Lee in this manner and for allowing me to be a part of it. As many of you know, I served 2 terms, really 2 entities, but 4 terms, as House Majority Whip. And it's a whip's job to gather the votes and to make sure when an issue comes to the floor, that the votes are there to pass it. During my tenure as Majority Whip, one of my chief deputy whips was Sheila Jackson Lee. Now, when you decide to get a chief deputy whip, you do so because you want someone who can really help, not just translate what may or may not be in a piece of legislation, but develop the kind of relationships that are required to get people to go along with the vote and to get the bill passed. Sheila was one of the best. She did not mind approaching people, asking for their vote, and she was very adept at getting people to understand the issues at hand. Most people remember her from television, where she was speaking out on many, many different subjects. But the fact of the matter is, in and around tables, Sheila knew the issues very, very well. She had a very good way of explaining them, and she had the relationships that were necessary to get them to final passage. Of course, everybody remember how diligent she was when she took up the mantle of reparations. H.R. 40 became her middle name, and she fought for that legislation for the entire time that she was here in the Congress. And so I want to thank you for honoring her in this way. But for a prior commitment, I would be there with you. But thank you for letting me participate in this manner. And to all of you in attendance, Godspeed.
Jim Clyburn of South Carolina is joining us right now, folks. 3 people who knew the Congresswoman quite well from Houston. Sonny Masai-Giles, publisher of the Houston Defender. Gerald Womack is president and CEO of the Womack Development and Investment Realtors, and Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis. Sonny, I'll start with you. How many times did you get that phone call from Sheila at the last second about putting her in that week's paper before you went to deadline?
I got that call more than you could count. And I think you know that, Roland, because you were in the room sometime when she would call. But you know what? When I look back on my relationship with Sheila, I first met Sheila in my mom's kitchen. Is when she was running for Harris County judge. The 3 races that she lost, this sister was persistent, if nothing else. People don't realize that Sheila, having lost, just fed more energy for her to win. So it was like, in meeting her, she was the kind of person that she wasn't going to give up. I don't care what you said or what you did. And I'm sure my fellow colleagues on this call would say amen.
Amen.
This is this week's front page of the Houston Defender. Quite fitting to have Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee right there with Vice President Kamala Harris, Sonny.
It's so monumental. Someone said to me on the call Sunday night when all the black women were on the call that it's like an angel. Sheila is up there working God about getting a black woman elected president. And I was like, she might be up there doing that. I mean, she was that kind of person. She wasn't going to give up, especially if she had a mission.
Gerald, I would often go home and I would see the Congresswoman in Houston. Hell, I might see her in D.C. You were right there.
Yeah, I moved her to Washington, moved her there with her to Washington, picked out the office, had a big old hat, and was so excited Sheila had won to be the congressperson of the 18th district. Sheila loved this district every night, every day. I've never seen a person that would get out of session and hit and get off the plane and go right off churches and shake hands, kiss babies, and do all those things that other folks would not do that time of night. And I've got so many good memories of her. I'm going back to that article that the New York Times did where she said, all I want to do is make a difference. She said, I can't afford to write a check for it, but I can have a voice where I can make change. And I believe that was her motto. I remember we had one storm. I had a utility truck, and she said, you got to come over and pick me up. And I said, okay, I'll be there in just a moment. When I got there, we was at the end of, we got at the end of Martin Luther King and 610, and then we were a little further down, and the next thing I know, we were on a fire truck because we had a flood. And then the next thing I know, I was on a boat with a flashlight in the middle of the night telling people, come on out, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Sheila had passion to make a difference, and whatever she did, you can believe, like the president once said long ago, you want Sheila to be on your side. It hurts me because I've been a campaign manager for all these years, and we work so closely together every day and night to make a difference for the least of those. And, she was a hard worker. You could not outwork she. I would say, you've told me everything but the pills that you take that will keep you up all this time. And if you just tell me I'm selling real estate, I'm going to go out of the real estate business and I'm going to start selling some of these pills because she had that kind of energy. And God, we couldn't have enough. We wouldn't have the metric because Sheila bought those lines, those dollars, those federal resources here to build that. She bought all these other federal dollars for affordable housing. I mean, her immigration record, her office, my accolades is to her whole staff because they were the Congress office for everybody. I don't care where you were from. You could call her office and her office and her would work the issue out. So I am just so, I'm heartbroken. I know she's in a better place, but I know that she's up in heaven. As soon as she got there, she went right to work.
But Commissioner Rodney Ellis, no one has ever accused you of being a quiet person, But man, you got to admit, it was always a little hard for that microphone when you were in the room with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Sheila Jackson Lee, the Congresswoman, was clearly one of a kind. Unstoppable. You know, some people are just born for politics. Sheila Jackson Lee was one of those people. I met her shortly after she came to Houston. Elwin brought her to Houston, by the way. And Elwin was one that you would have thought would have ended up in politics. And of course, as my great friend Sonny Messiah mentioned, the Congresswoman ran for judge, I think 4 times.
3.
I was counting the primary to general. So if you count them all, that's 6 times.
That's true.
Becoming judge, I can remember once when my old boss, Congressman Mickey Leland, was trying to find people so blacks and Hispanics could take over the school board. We were at Warwick Hotel at Leland's table. He said, "Call Sheila." So I said, "Well, we talked to her already about this, Mickey. She does not want to run." He said, "Well, call her again. We want her house." So I called Elwin and I said, "Mickey Leland wants me to drive him over to you all's house." I was on city council, first term, to get Sheila to run for the school board. So he lied and said she was in Austin. And so I said, "Now, Elwin, we're coming to your house because I don't think you're telling the truth." And he said, "No, call her." So I was too dumb. I called her. She answered the phone. And she said, "I'm in Austin." But he had enough time to tell her from going over there. When she went on city council, it's interesting, the parallels. You know, I've had the privilege of knowing all of the people who served in the 18th in contemporary history. Barbara Jordan, who went when I came out of high school, and to Mickey Leland, of course, Craig Washington, and then Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Sheila, more than anybody I know, was just so persistent. She was well-read. Some of her colleagues would tell me about how she walked into a committee room late because she's doing 4 or 5 things with these 2 phones and always on the phone. And then she'd lean over and say, "Now, what is this about?" And they briefly explain it. And then Sheila would give a speech as though she'd been that whole time. And that was not just buffaloing through it. She was well-read. Yeah. She'd reach back into that body of knowledge, things she knew about. And it was just, just like clockwork. When you think about it, a black woman, graduate, undergrad school from Yale, and then to go to the University of Virginia Law School, I think came out about 75, the year I was coming out of undergrad school, just, 4 years older than me. But this was an exceptionally bright human being, but she was driven. Some people would want to take a break. I remember once telling her, "Sheila, we need to do what normal people need to do." I was in the States and I said, "First of all, you're driving us crazy. Doing all of this stuff. You got to stop some of this. And for your own good mental health, you need to go do what normal people do." So she said, "Okay, Rodney, what do they do?" I had to think about it, and I said, "Well, this is before Netflix." I said, "I think they go to movies." So she said, "Okay, let's go to movie, but it has to be at the end of my day." "Okay, it's a Saturday night. Let's go about 8 o'clock. She shows up at my house at 10 o'clock. First, I got to explain to my wife there's nothing untoward about this. Well, you and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, just the 2 of you with you driving, and you can't see. So we go to a movie. And Gerald, we sitting there, and, I had the popcorn and all. She ate it all up. And then she gets some more popcorn. So I had to say, "Well, Congresswoman, I'm not on your staff. And I'm enjoying this movie. We ate the popcorn." We sat on our diet. So she gets up, looks at the popcorn, some hat on her head, and some shade. And then 5 minutes later, of course, I got to run to the men's room, and people were saying, "Would you tell Sheila, we know who the hell you all are?" My point is, everybody knew her. But even in the movie, she's texting. She's responding to people calling. She loved her work. And let me tell you, we're going to miss her. Whatever the issue was, whatever it was, no matter how late it was, if you wanted to get something done, you get somebody's business. That's what I was told once. You called Sheila Jackson Lee. Her colleagues are going to miss her. We're going to miss. What an incredible legacy. And Gerald, I know they say she's in a better place, but let me tell you, if they give her an assignment, Could give her a lot of them because she loves to work, even in her illness.
Right.
First kept around, but once it was public and we were out at Greenhouse International, one of her last public events, I said, well, now, Sheila, you can't keep being around all these people. I could feel the port on her arm, so I knew she was getting treatment. And I said, you can't. And she leaned over, with that smile, but that serious eye. Rodney, you're my friend. You're not my doctor. What I want to do.
Well,
but to the end.
That sounds like Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Commissioner Ellis, Jared Womack, Senator Messiah Giles, we certainly appreciate y'all joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you for doing this for Sheila.
Right.
Absolutely. Folks, we talked about how she was no nonsense. This was a congressional hearing 5 years ago where she was not taking any guff off of one of Trump's people, Matt Whitaker. Watch this.
Mr. Holder, we're here.
Witness will answer.
Mr. Chairman, may I have my time restored? I think it was at 4 minutes.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Attorney General, the question is, did you have a confirmation hearing, and has it been more than 10 years since you testified before Congress?
Congresswoman,
Can the clock be restored?
It was. I'm sorry, what was your, I don't know if your time's been restored or not.
Mr. Attorney General, we're not joking here, and your humor is not acceptable. Now, you are here because we have a constitutional duty to ask questions, and the Congress has the right to establish government rules. The rules are that you are here. So I need to ask the question, and I need to have my time restored so that you can behave appropriately. I will behave appropriately as a member of the Judiciary Committee. I'm asked a question. Did you have a confirmation hearing, and have you not yet appeared for an oversight hearing?
Congresswoman, I am an acting Attorney General. I have been appointed according to the Vacancies Reform Act, and I have never appeared in front of Congress for any hearing, even when I was United States Attorney.
I'm asked for a yes or no answer. Is that? Yeah. Let me, and so you've never appeared. Let me quickly ask a question. Prior to the firing of former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, did you discuss or share your private opinions of the Special Counsel investigation with the Chief of Staff?
Right there, you saw her. She was like, hey, this ain't no joking matter. That was Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Absolutely, she is going to be missed by her constituents, by her colleagues. She was a tough cookie. Did not make it easy on her staff and on others, but she was somebody who was going to fight on behalf of people. She was going to stand up and speak for people. And this, of course, is a video here, her encouraging Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church to fight on behalf of social justice. And in a moment, we're going to be having President Joe Biden speak from the Oval Office. So let me cue this back up. And here's the Congresswoman.
I believe it is crucial that as you discuss these issues today, that you have a legislative agenda. Help us pass real criminal justice reform with our criminal justice sentencing reduction legislation by going to your members of Congress to help us pass this.
Oval Office with President Joe Biden.
Presidents. Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln, who implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt, who inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people. And we can never forget that. And I never have. I've made it clear that I believe America is at an inflection point. One of those rare moments in history when the decisions we make now will determine our fate of our nation and the world for decades to come. America's going to have to choose between moving forward or backward, between hope and hate, between unity and division. We have to decide, do we still believe in honesty, decency, respect, freedom, justice, and democracy? In this moment, we can see those we disagree with not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. Can we do that? Does character in public life still matter? I believe I know the answer to these questions because I know you, the American people, and I know this. We are a great nation because we are good people. When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much, a cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. But there's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now. Over the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president. That means I'll continue to lower costs for hardworking families, grow our economy. I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose. I'll keep calling out hate and extremism. Make it clear there is no place in America for political violence or any violence ever, period. I'm going to keep speaking out to protect our kids from gun violence. Our planet from climate crisis is the existential threat. And I will keep fighting for my cancer moonshot so we can end cancer as we know it, because we can do it. And I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy, Supreme Court reform. You know, I will keep working to ensure America remains strong and secure and the leader of the free world. I'm the first president in this century to report to the American people that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world. We'll keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I'll make it more powerful and more united than any time in all of our history. I'll keep doing the same for our allies in the Pacific. You know, when I came to office, the conventional wisdom was that China would inevitably surpass the United States. That's not the case anymore. And I'm going to keep working to end the war in Gaza, bring home all the hostages, and bring peace and security to the Middle East and end this war. We're also working around the clock to bring home Americans being unjustly detained all around the world. You know, we've come so far since my inauguration. On that day, I told you, as I stood in that winter, we stood in a winter of peril and a winter of possibilities. Peril and possibilities. We were in the grip of the worst pandemic in the century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. But we came together as Americans, and we got through it. We emerged stronger, more prosperous, and more secure. Today, we have the strongest economy in the world, creating nearly 16 million new jobs, a record. Wages are up. Inflation continues to come down. The racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. We're literally rebuilding our entire nation, urban, suburban, rural, and tribal communities. Manufacturing has come back to America. We're leading the world again in chips and science and innovation. We finally beat Big Pharma after all these years to lower the cost of prescription drugs for seniors. And I'm going to keep fighting to make sure we lower the cost for everyone, not just seniors. More people have health care today in America than ever before. And I signed one of the most significant laws helping millions of veterans and their families who are exposed to toxic materials. You know, the most significant climate law ever in the history of the world. The first major gun safety law in 30 years. And today, the violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We're also securing our border. Border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office. I've kept my commitment to appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I also kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and be a president for all Americans. That's what I've done. I ran for president 4 years ago because I believed and still do that the soul of America was at stake. The very nature of who we are was at stake. And that's still the case. America's an idea. An idea stronger than any army, bigger than any ocean, more powerful than any dictator or tyrant. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. That idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We've never fully lived up to it. Rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We've never fully lived up to it, to this sacred idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I do not believe the American people will walk away from it now. In just a few months, the American people will choose the course of America's future. I made my choice. I've made my views known. I would like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country. Now the choice is up to you, the American people. When you make that choice, remember the words of Benjamin Franklin hanging on my wall here in the Oval Office, alongside the busts of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez. When Ben Franklin was asked, as he emerged from the convention going on, whether the founders have given America a monarchy or republic, Franklin's response was, a republic, if you can keep it. A republic, if you can keep it. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands. My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter, from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am. That's what's so special about America. We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers, of ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things. I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. We just have to keep faith, keep the faith, and remember who we are. We're the United States of America, and there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. So let's act together, preserve our democracy. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Folks, that was President Joe Biden speaking from the Oval Office for about 10 minutes or so. And just so you know, that glitch there, that wasn't him. That literally was a technical glitch from the feed that we were getting from of the Associate Press in the White House. And so that is it for us, folks. We certainly appreciate y'all joining us. Tomorrow, I'll be broadcasting live from New Orleans, site of the National Urban League Convention. So I'm flying there in the morning. So please, we look forward to y'all. Be sure to follow us. You can see the live stream of different events from the Urban League. They had a rally today. We live streamed that. So go to our YouTube channel, go to the Black Star Network app. You can actually see that rally as well. Folks, don't forget to support the work that we do by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And of course, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available. Bookstores nationwide. Get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target. Also, you can get the audio version. I read it right there on Audible. Folks, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Be well. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?